foundation. As you have been briefed, our sole purpose of existing is to ensure the real dangers of the world are kept contained and secure from the general population. While on the facility, do refrain from straying off your authorized areas, as we do hope you last longer than your predecessors. The case files you have been authorized to access are highly confidential, but I'm sure you already know that. The Urn-born child. The subject we have contained on the 5th floor is sealed within an earthen jar, placed in a circular room within a much larger room. Its walls are lined with mirrors, as we have found the subject to hate its own reflection for some reason. Within the small circular room, we have filled it with marbles and other children's toys, which are meant to keep the subject entertained and out of mischief. It is still unnerving, as we cannot see the subject without special equipment, and it looks as though the toys are moving on their own. The containment procedure is unorthodox, but effective, as it was conceived after a consultation with the native local shamans, which the people know as Dukans. Admittedly, there is hardly much that is considered normal procedure in an organization that deals with the supernatural. The subject we have on the 5th floor is the corpse of a small human fetus, submerged in an oily, dark liquid within the earthen jar. The jar is sealed with a heavy cloth over a wooden lid and secured with hemp rope. The sides of the jar are inscribed with local religious script and symbols, stained dark red around the rim of the jar. Initial research indicates that the fetus is approximately 3 to 4 months old based on its physical developmental stage. Bones and muscles are evident under close inspection, and fingers and toes are also discernible. While the physical remains of the subject are within the jar, the subject is also able to materialize outside the confines of the jar and can only be seen using specialized equipment. The only obvious visible difference between a normal human fetus and a subject would be the fully formed but cloudy gray eyes behind almost translucent eyelids. Lab analysis of the subject indicates that the liquid fixative used to preserve the specimens is the commonly used formalin mixture, mixed with traces of amniotic fluid and other ritualistic herbs and reagents. Traces of human blood and the hormone chorionic gonadotropin is also found mixed in the fluid. It seems that the traditional mystical arts of black magic have seen some modernization as well. While common around the region, this subject in particular was discovered in a densely occupied, low-cost apartment block when operatives intercepted reports of tenants losing valuables and other minor unexplained occurrences. After narrowing down the tenants' listings and interviews with a number of residents and landlords, our agents, in the guise of pest control, managed to identify the source to be in Unit 6, Block B of the apartment. As a unit of containment specialists breached the apartment unit, they discovered a sparsely decorated living space for one. A strong stench of death, however, led our operatives to discover a secret room beneath the flooring, revealing a staircase that led to a hidden cellar. It was lined with shelves filled with jars and vials of unknown reagents and chemicals. At the base of the staircase leading to the workspace, we found the body of an adult male in advanced stages of decomposition. The investigative team learned the identity of the deceased, who had been living there for the past 10 years and had worked at a nearby government-operated hospital. It is believed that the deceased had tripped and fallen down the dark stairway and broken his neck. Whether the deceased was pushed or if it was merely an accident cannot be ascertained at this point. The corpse had begun decomposing, which was what initially led the neighbor to complain about inconsiderate neighbors and their trash. Most abnormal was the forensic report that found numerous bite marks all over the body, both on the decaying flesh as well as parts of exposed bone. It was as though something had been feeding on the corpse. The subject itself was discovered on a nearby shelf while sorting teams were archiving and deciding what was to be disposed of and what needed containment. Locally recruited agents familiar with local folklore and legend identified what the subject was and designated it to be contained despite declaring it a safe object class. The deceased had been harvesting human remains from the hospital he had been working at for many years. The remains were preserved and ritually tied to entities that had made it a willing familiar do the bidding of its owner. This resulted in regular, minor acts of mischief or theft which had been reported throughout the apartment block. We had found our culprit. The creation of such beings is not unheard of, as it is locally known as Toyo. These supernatural beings were created by practitioners of black magic in order to steal money and cause mischief to one's enemies. The caveat is that the subject needs to be constantly fed a diet of the owner's own blood to strengthen the bonds between master and servant. It is therefore surmised that the abrupt death of the owner resulted in a very hungry servant, who was merely claiming what was owed to them for their services. The deceased is believed to not be a direct practitioner of the occult, but possibly inherited the being and was in the underground business selling human fetuses to other occult practitioners. Upon initial containment, personnel within Site X started to complain about similar loss of valuables and money. As normal cameras could never capture evidence or any sign of movements in the jar, it is believed that the subject has ties to other dimensions, allowing the subject to move unseen through physical space and reality without impediment. In order to contain the situation, newer methods were devised for proper containment of the subject, and all abnormal complaints from the staff have ceased.